Good evening. I am Udeni Navagamua, the chair of the History and Heritage Forum of the Institution of Sri Lanka. Today, we have a very important lecture from a lady engineer who contributed immensely to the irrigation sector in the country. Her topic today is restoration of irrigation systems in Sri Lanka, lessons through the journey. Engineer Bhadra Kamaladasa joined the irrigation department in 1979 as an irrigation engineer and retired in 2015 as the Director General of Irrigation after continuous service of 36 years. She has published more than 35 technical papers related to water resources development and management. Ms. Kamaladasa has represented Sri Lanka in many international fora, sharing Sri Lanka's experience in many themes related to ancient irrigation technology in Sri Lanka, dam safety, water resources planning, designs, operations management, and gender aspects in irrigation sector. She is the author of the centenary publication of ISL, specifically Irrigation Development of Sri Lanka. She contributed many articles to Sri Lanka Archaeology FB group, combining archaeology and engineering aspects over our ancient systems. Currently, she is working as a freelance consultant on governance, legal matters, environmental impact assessment, climate change impact, and gender issues on water resources development and management. So with this short introduction, so I would like to invite Engineer Bhadra Kamaladasa to deliver her speech. Over to you, Bhadra Madam.
Thank you very much, Dr. Navama. I hope you can hear me well.
Yes, madam, we can hear you. Yes.
Yeah. Okay, I will close my video in a while to get a better reception. Good evening to all of you. And of course, I have a challenge of selecting the most salient points out of the huge information base available on this topic of restoration of ancient irrigation system in Sri Lanka, lessons through the journey. So if one select, if one select one ancient scheme that was restored, stories behind this single event itself be sufficient for a separate volume. So I was struggling a bit, of course, to select the most appropriate stuff only as the audience today is a diversified group. While some of you may have first-hand experience on this subject, someone would have just overheard about certain experiences. So anyway, I hope my selections today for presentation will be justifiable for your time, and you also to pick up some salient points for further discussion and for the follow-up action. My contents will be in the presentation. I will briefly give some background on how the restoration work started and restoration of village works, large anicuts, large reservoirs, and a case study will be discussed on Kuda Vilachia reservoir. So that is mainly my framework of today's presentation. So if I talk about the overview, I always like to identify the different eras of the irrigation development as ancient era, dark era, and contemporary era. So the glorious ancient era having recorded history from 6th century BC. And during this period, variety of schemes were built and managed. This era came to an abrupt end in 12th century, and this dark era prevailed until latter part of 17th century. So sorry, there is a typo mistake here. It should be corrected as 12th to 17th century. The next phase of the contemporary era begins when the colonial rulers start restoration of the abundant system. So it continues up till now. I will be talking about the last phase only, which will eventually make references to many works in ancient era. So the contemporary era can be further divided into three main sub-areas as Dutch era and British colonial era before independence and after independence, that is the Ceylonese era. So during the Dutch period, certain attempts were taken to revive the ancient irrigation systems, especially in the maritime area. New irrigation development such as Urubokka scheme in Magampattu was initiated in addition to drainage development done by them. During the British period, there were a lot of neglected, there was a period total neglected about on restoration when they could not actually the British rulers could not comprehend the situation in the country, in their colony, and thought of their priorities only. So then there were purposeful destructions when they could not control the rebellions, especially in hill country and Velas. After having bitter experiences with all these episodes, the rulers realized revival of the ancient irrigation system is the only path for their peaceful survival, and started interventions by introducing legislations, restoration of village works, and also large schemes. Many new schemes added to the system as a result of this policy change, including flood, not only the reservoirs and anchors, but also flood protection and salt water exclusion schemes all over the country. The first new reservoir was built by them was Kirama Oil Reservoir in southern area. For the post-independent era continued in accelerated manner, with the Ceylonese officers occupying the decision-making post in the education sector. Fair portion of national budget was allocated for irrigation, and the same type of work continued by the during that era too, until from 1948, especially including the river basin-wise plans, and many new reservoirs adding to the restoration of small, medium, and large schemes. And then it came to a modern era where Mahavali accelerated, under the Mahavali accelerated program, new dams with the new technology came into our system, and also then the next era came as expansion of the existing system, modification, rehabilitation. All these things are what is still continuing. So the contemporary era will comprised with all these components. Then as a result of these interventions, nearly 50 number of major new reservoirs were added to the water resources infrastructure to cater irrigation, hydropower, and domestic water sectors, which we are not going to talk today, but I want to devote at least one slide here with all the due respect to those who toiled their life to make these projects become reality. If I go to the basics, in case of restoration of any abundant scheme for many decades, many centuries, or for any new construction of reservoir or irrigation system, the engineer may need the following basic information. Under the current technological development, some of these are easily achievable, while we need sophisticated instruments or machinery to explore. We can appreciate the achievements of our ancestors if we realize how much it is difficult to acquire this information when the technology was not advanced compared to the current situation. So this slide I just want to show and request you to remind these matters throughout the presentation, because without this information, the construction was done during the ancient era, and also I must remind you all, most of the restorations were done without these tools, methodologies, and instruments in hand at the beginning, especially. So, if we consider the time, the mid of 19th century, when restoration started, to compare with the basic information and what the necessary and also what was available, there were no survey maps at all. It was the situation that most basic information I mentioned in previous slide was not available. Under some major schemes, there were no inhabitants, people depending on it. So many schemes are converted to thick jungle, and one cannot identify. If you go into the forest, nobody can identify whether it is a high ground or a part of a breach dam, something like that. So no technical standards, guidelines, or specification available, even to refer. Then government target, actually the government targets those days were the food security and reduce the imports, and land settlement, developing the land settlements for people to settle under these schemes. And no environmental or archaeological regulations were there during that time, and technical standards, guidelines, specifications, both locally and internationally, those were not available. And those who were engaged at the beginning, the engineers from UK, they also have very limited experience, because actually reservoir construction started in United Kingdom in 19th century. So those who were involved in restoration had to use the best engineering judgments only by studying the remnants in the field scattered here and there. Then this restoration of ancient systems involved all these items: small reservoirs, anchors, large reservoirs, transbasin canals, and downstream irrigation systems, which is very, very complicated, not because they all was scattered everywhere. And as I mentioned earlier, very difficult to identify whether it is a part of a irrigation system or just a topographical feature. Then, so the first British rulers, the first focus was on restoration of ancient small reservoirs. It was started in mid 19th century. That is after realizing the mistake done by abolishing Rajakari system based on the Colebrook Commission report recommendation. Then the schemes to be restored, the village irrigation schemes to be restored were selected based on the request of the farmers and government agent in the area. Only the sluices were provided by the government with their funds, and the earthwork had to be done by the beneficiaries, especially the farmers. Only the sluices were provided, and usually no modification of to the bund was done, but followed the same ancient design of the bund and the spill. So very limited technical interventions could be made, as there was as these activities were implemented under the setup of district revenue officer or that is DRO or government agent, with the limited technical support from the public works department. So once restored, these schemes were handed over to the beneficiaries, to the management. That is the story in short about the small reservoirs. So as I mentioned earlier, the only physical observation and some limited surveys could be done to restore the village tanks. The things improved when the government started developing topographical surveys in the country in 1870s also. When the whole island was covered by this type of 1-inch map only, everyone realized the extent of irrigation systems that are to be developed, that were developed by our ancestors and which are in a dilapidated condition. So most of these reservoirs, actually, this topo is from 1960s, but the topo sheets prepared in early 1900 had shown most of these village tanks are in abandoned state. However, this topo sheets was not always 100% reliable. I got this two topo maps to compare the location of Maduroya. Maduroya Reservoir. So you can see in this 1960 map, 1960 topo map, there is no clue about Maduroya Reservoir in this place. And when you compare the 2010 map, you can see the Maduroya and the new reservoir constructed. And so if one followed the map previous topographical map, he or she would have misled by thinking that there was no reservoir to restore there. Let us now see what type of sluices were constructed in village tanks during the 19th century when restoration work started. There was no guidance for the engineers to follow during the restoration, as I mentioned earlier previously several times. So most of the solutions were based on their limited knowledge and exposure they would have got during the graduation or while working in the field. This is a sluice adopted in 1884. Just a sluice barrel is laid. No sluice operation arrangement for the sluice operation, no sluice well or gate. Only a free flow was allowed through the barrel. This arrangement is a bit advanced one. This 1884 type plan for a village reservoir introduced. It is a bit of a sophisticated arrangement for the sluice inlet, but only a free flow is allowed. There's no gate, sluice gate or sluice well introduced there. Then this is a type plan again used in 1887. This is a head wall type gate. You can see a head wall is constructed here. It is not a sluice well as we now experience. It is a head wall, and you can see the gate here to control the water going through the sluice barrel. And this is again sluice adapted in Matale district without the gate arrangement and allowing only the free flow through the reservoir, no control through any gate, and the barrel was supported with firm to the ground with some dowels or something like that. It is not much clear anyway. So this was a type plan used for Matale district, issued by the Central Irrigation Board. This sluice is a bit advanced. You can see it is the sluice. There again, there is no sluice tower, but it is the sluice a head wall and a gate with some hinge is even with control with some power of control. Okay. Now this is the last small village sluice I'm presenting that was introduced during this initial restoration period. It is the gate is operated. It's a bit of a unusual arrangement. This 1903 plan introduced the new concept. It seems a gate location and operation is done by from the dam crest, and lever arrangement is there. So I have anyway my doubt about the sustainability or the of the system, if at all they were adopted. I'm sure most of the engineers irrigation working in the irrigation sector here in the audience will have a lot of comments about these primitive arrangements. So I'm not going to highlight anyway the shortcomings of all these plans, what I have showed so far, but to mention briefly that British engineers would have learned through the trial and error methods for the best suitable solution for the sluices in these small tanks. The next important component of a reservoir is a spill, even whether it is a village reservoir or a large reservoir. So what was the technique they adopted to provide spills to the village tank? It is the same spill location and the length they provided when the restoration was done. The trial and error procedure was the order of the day, and this procedure had to be changed due to one fateful event in 1923. That is a rail dam disaster in Madavachya. What was happened? What happened was actually a night train traveling from Mana to Colombo got caught to flood due to a dam breach, and a train got derailed. And under the condition of the floods, like in parallel tsunami case, 20 persons died on the spot and 35 persons seriously injured, fatal injuries. So government appointed a commission to inquire and report the cause. Those days, government takes the commission report seriously, not like today's, not like these days. Recommendations very seriously, and as a result, technical investigations was carried out as a follow-up of recommendation of the commission. It was to investigate the commission report recommended all the small village tanks from Polgahavel to Mena, and also to Jaffna railway line that will be affected by any damage from the small village tank to be inspected and reported. So this investigations was irrigation department conducted the investigations on 354 tanks during 1923-26 period, and the results were submitted to the government. And more than that, the engineer J.S. Kennedy, who was the team leader and who became the director of irrigation later, he presented the paper of this investigation, the study, to the scientific community engineers. It is called the paper on evolution of scientific development of village irrigation work. I recommend any, especially the students who are listening to today, if they are to read this paper and get an idea how much in detail they have analyzed the situation of the village tanks at that time. Then the paper concluded the recommendation to follow up. It was only one department handling the irrigation related work at that time, that is the irrigation department, and it was not difficult to make these suggestions suggested in the paper, in the technical paper, to combine those into the official procedures. the paper has given comprehensive guideline for preliminary investigation, detailed investigation, and so on. So these were embedded into the official design planning procedures and continued. And it was further went to see the categorization of village reservoirs into broad groups depending on their location of spillway and sluice and the direction of the bund and things like that. And important observations were made, especially the first one. They came to a conclusion to say that spillways are not adequate and hence failures occur due to overtopping. Especially the Madhavachya small village reservoir, even though it was small reservoir that made a big damage. So that failure was occurred due to the insufficient spillway, and the paper recommended that spillway analysis should be done to correct this situation. So, these are few diagrams I scanned from 1933 ISL paper, which showed different categories of village works identified by the committee. So these are only very few scan maps. There are many more there. And so this whole episode made a pathway for the scientific analysis of hydrological behavior of the village reservoirs in Sri Lanka. So as a result, a generic guidelines on restoration of village tanks, the hydrological analysis for spill design was developed. It's a country specific one. That is the most important thing here. It is not matter that bought directly from the Western engineering theories. And then the type plans were issued again for the dam and spillway designs. And then safety regulations were introduced in the irrigation ordinance, giving the responsibility for the irrigation department to over the small irrigation works. And the design guidelines were updated continuously in the irrigation sector, especially for the internal use. And then the developments are continuing like this. In 1983, I'm sure most of you know about this. The engineer Ponraja published the design of irrigation headworks in Sri Lanka for small catchments. That was a continuation of the previous paper I mentioned. And engineer Sarmugam also published several other guidelines in 1950s. And this became a national level guidelines when all other water related institutions came into the scene, the Mahavali Authority, Agrarian Development Department, and so on. And then the recent development in this area is in last year, the about 1983 guideline was updated, especially with the 80 years of hydrometeorological data collected by the Irrigation Department Hydrology Division. And climate change impacts were also considered and included in this guideline. So you can see the progressive development happening. It is not only, it is not stagnated and or static subject on this matter. It is a very dynamic subject, changing day by day. So the second, the next development in this area is this exploration of the single small reservoir in this type of model. So thanks to those who are having enthusiasm in studying the village irrigation systems more in a holistic manner in this, as shown in this manner. Now the village irrigation scheme has been identified as an entity having many more integral items in it. Most of you are familiar with this diagram, I hope. And the features that supported the sustainability of the ecosystem, which I'm not going to discuss in detail. A lot of literature available in the internet on this. And the next level of this hypothesis was developed around around the village tank is the cascade system. So it was mooted in mid 1990s by Professor Madhum Bandara and other scholars. And this is now recognized as a United Nations FAO as globally important agricultural heritage site. Okay, now let us now move to the large system, large reservoirs. Restoration of large reservoirs started in mid 19th century, just after starting the village reservoirs. Then it is said that the interest of large reservoirs actually arose after the publication of Mahavansa in English in 1836. It mentioned about many large irrigation systems, including trans-basin diversions. So the selection for restoration was done based on many factors, not like village systems. More comprehensive and accurate surveys were needed for large systems. It is very obvious. And Central Irrigation Board and other organizations, along with the survey department, had collaborated programs, and many decisions based on matters collected through the physical observation at the site, and also consulting the inhabitants, and also some sort of hydrological analysis based on the physical evidences in the catchment, and also the investigations from time to time, continuously doing investigations until the financial and social conditions become suitable. So the government attempt was to recover the cost of the restoration by selling the lands. When restoring the ancient headworks, the same dam was used if found suitable, with repairs and sometimes with geotechnical treatments. In many of these schemes, spillway locations were at the same place, as it was the best suitable place for discharge of excess water. You can see some photographs showing ancient sloughs and ancient dams that were restored. And also the spillway. Spillway also was the same, located in the same location as in the village tanks, but they have adopted some different way of designing the spillways in large reservoirs, doing some hydrological designs. Then some of the schemes coming into this category are Halawa, Nachaduwa, Kuruluwa, Tisawa, Abe, and so on. There are many more reservoirs restored in this way, having the same dam locations, having the same dam body, using the same old sluices and spillways. Then there was another type of restoration of large reservoirs, that is by if the abundant schemes are badly damaged, the new headworks close to ancient dam were adapted. So the Rambakanoya in Mahawaya and Madhuroya are some of the examples. When engineers conduct the geotechnical investigations in old dams, sometimes they find that these are not suitable for restoration due to many shortcomings in the dam body, quality of the material and things like that. So the close location, especially in the upstream of the reservoir is taken, and the new entire new dam and new reservoir is built up with association with the downstream system. So fortunately, these theories and practices, no, actually, as I mentioned earlier, the physical observations of all these components of abundant schemes was not possible at all. So to get an overview of the overall understanding of an irrigation project, that type of leveling would not be enough. The project may scatter all over the maybe hundreds of square kilometers. Mapping of a project area is needed to be get more clear idea about that. So fortunately, the theories, the surveying theories, practices, and technology have been developed to a substantial standard by mid-19th century. So the surveys done on ancient schemes provided a sufficiently reliable comprehensive data for the restoration decisions. This is a tracing of ancient Kalaweva Bund done in 1883, and the tracing is actually in 1903 dated. It gives the details of the whole bund, whole Kalaweva Bund, 5 miles, 4,000 feet long dam, where the breaches are occurred. There are 11 number of breaches along the bund if you look into the map closely, and the spill level is given, emergency spillway is marked, bund crest level, and all these details are marked in this survey. So that is why I mentioned that the surveys have been advanced to a certain level of degree, I mean advanced level at that time. So now irrigation officials demarcate the when the irrigation officers have to satisfied with the detailed information more than that. So the next step was to develop the engineering surveys on a area where they are going to restore the irrigation system. So the procedure was to get the irrigation, the selected area or map on a topo sheet and prepare a key plan like shown in the left hand side. This is a key plan prepared for Alhara headworks and given it to the survey department to conduct the engineering survey sheets. So there you can see that I have given the detailed engineering survey sheet of one sheet marked here. It gives the contours at intervals, maybe in one is in scales of 1 foot to 250 feet, or 1 foot to 520 feet, something like that, depending on the specification given by the irrigation department. So I'm sorry for the quality of the maps that is beyond my control anyway. I got these maps from the archives of the irrigation department. So the right hand side engineering survey sheets in Alhara shows specific details of the Ambanganga and Kuda Ganga, and also many other details that the design engineer can decide on the headworks what they are going to restore at this place. So that is a very, I mean, advanced level of approach that the engineers adopted at that time during the restoration of large irrigation systems. Then this map is the detailed map of Alharamin area Kantala Yodala, which gives plan and longitudinal section, the left hand side drawing with all the details of the beaching sections and all the cross drainages coming through and irrigation outlets that were there earlier. So engineer can then easily identify the repairs needed to be done in this transbasin canal and can prepare an accurate estimate also. So the engineering survey sheets were translated to blocking out plans as shown in the right hand side, showing the irrigable area that identifies drainage paths, reservations, community centers, and everything what is needed in a newly developed area that should be restored. So there are then this is a blocking out plan that's prepared in Kalawava, Kagama area. It has marked all the physical features existing and proposed and additional minor SOS and also new community centers proposed. Those are highlighted in my map here. And so for you to get an idea about the planner's intervention at that time. So there are thousands of these type of drawings shelved in the survey department and also in the irrigation department, which will be very much useful for future researchers to compare status of a scheme with the past, with the current status of the scheme with the past. Then I will move on to move to discuss briefly over the observations made on spills, embankment and sluices in ancient large reservoirs. When coming to the spillways of large schemes, it is not as simple as of village tanks. It was found the major dams were always collapsed due to the overtopping of the bund and not the structural failure of sluice or anything. And spillways were not sufficient to pass the flood. It is almost similar case in village tanks. So basic theories of hydrological analysis have been developed by early 20th century for the engineers to carry out the operation studies. Now it was found that spill lengths provided in ancient reservoirs were not sufficient, and hence all the restorations of new spill lengths had to be provided more than double. Sometimes you can see in this table, which was prepared based on the observations made by engineer G.T. Dharmasena when he was the former Director General. And he has compared the ancient spill length allowed in ancient design and also the new spillway allowed during the restoration. Basawakkulam, Tisawa, Pawatkulam, everywhere it is same. Now you can see in Unikulam it is more than 4 times. It is more than 4 times that was allowed during the restoration, considering the hydrological behavior of the catchment. So, but at the same time, we could observe that as a precautionary measure in ancient dams, a high freeboard has been allowed in all major dams. For example, in a scheme where 1.5 meter freeboard is allowed by the current design engineer, our ancestors have allowed more than 3 meters. I will elaborate more on this in later case studies. Then even with the increased spillway lengths, the spillways were insufficient, and that was revealed during the 1957 floods, when the 35 major dams and 53 medium dams were breached during the heavy storm, and most of these major dams, 35 major dams, were restored with the radial gated spillways. That was a new introduction to the spillways done in order to cater the shortage of spillways. Then some of the dams washed away were Kalawewa, Nachaduwa, Huruluwewa, Padabiya. Many dams in northern province and north central province were breached away during that period. So actually, instead of clear of all spillways, most of the spillways replaced with the radial gated spills, or else some gated spillways. So the flood occurred in 2012, reminded us again the reanalysis necessary of the reanalyzing of the advocacy of the spillways that is necessary under the climate change impacts. In most of the schemes, additional emergency breaches had to be done in 2012, and that make a new pathway for the engineers to think about the spillway designs in a new approach. So if I come back again to the high freeboards allowed as a safety measure in ancient dams, I can quote many examples. Here I took Kalawewa again to illustrate this. Some of you have visited Kalawewa, would have seen this ancient sluice of Yodala, and the water when it is the water is above the full supply level. When it is reaching to the full supply level. So cross section below shows the design of it. The sketch of allowing very high freeboard, and the sluice barrel is well below the bun crest. And then the new sluice in the Kalawewa, you can see it is it is at same level of the crest. The operating system is at the same level of the crest of the bun, and then the freeboard is reduced, making use of this additional storage for the use of the water management under the reservoir. So this can be observed in many ancient reservoirs. If you carefully study, this phenomenon can be easily identified. Then my next case I want to bring your attention is Wahalkada. This was restored in 1971. During that time, it was decided to use the same old bund, and also use one of the ancient sluices out of the two. There were two ancient sluices. But when the construction was going on, it was realized that restoring the ancient sluice will be a risk due to the condition of it. So by sealing the old sluice, a new sluice was constructed. Anyway, during the first filling of the reservoir, leaks started from the old sluice, and only through the grouting it could be arrested. So anyone visiting Wahalkada still can see the, sorry, I couldn't. Wahalkada still can see the outlet of the old sluice, which was sealed from the upstream. So some of the photographs in black and white, those officers were while doing the field visits during the reconnaissance surveys. Then the freeboard. freeboard provided in the old dam was more than 12 feet. And there was no clue at all about any spillway. So designers believe that the reservoir is a non-spilling reservoir. Sufficient detention capacity is there with the to cater the catchment inflow. And 1971 design too of this was no, they did not provide any spill. While however, it allowed high freeboard and the press of the sluice also was kept under the lower level as shown in the diagram and the photograph. However, by 1984, there was an imminent danger by overtopping the bund, and with some rescue operations, it was saved. And later on, the gated spillway was provided. And by 2012, this has to be changed again. With the climate change impacts, the intensity has been increased and so on. Another spill gate had to be provided to the Wahalkada reservoir, which was started as a non-spilling reservoir. Okay, that is the story of Wahalkada. So now this is Lower Malwathuai, another large system. If someone asks me to name the most admirable ancient irrigation work in Sri Lanka, yeah, my choice is giant tank system in Manna. There are so much features in this whole system that we will explore even after 120 years of restoration. This is believed to be constructed during King Dhathusen in 5th century. So I cannot understand how this unusual design was conceptualized with having the similar model without having a similar model somewhere else, not in Sri Lanka, even in any other country, we don't find this side of, I don't know, according to my knowledge, there is no such system. I must explore more whether there are any systems in India. Anyway, a modern engineer may definitely need aerial views or sensitive survey instruments to get levels in this type of to finalize this type of arrangement in a flat, almost flat area, as you know, this Manna area, where the system is laid down. So it is this is a very shallow reservoir which has 7 sluices which were restored as it was. These sluices serve 162 small reservoirs. 162 small reservoirs in the service area, even though you can see only very few here, there are more than that. So being a shallow reservoir compared with the irrigable area of 32,000 acres, it receives water diverted from the anicut called Tekkam anicut across Malwathuai through a 15 mile long feeder canal. Similarly, another feeder canal from Tekkam feeds Akatimuruppu irrigation system in the left-hand side of the Malwathuai river. Length of the distributory canal in the giant tank system itself is 48 kilometers. Small tank feeder canals are 113 kilometers and sub-feed canals 39 kilometers. So these figures I just want to highlight here to give you some idea and to for you to get an idea how complicated the system is. It is the same old ancient system that is functioning now. Okay. If you consider the Tekkam anicut alone, it is another wonder, not like any other ancient anicut built in oblique shape in a river. This ancient anicut is built across Malwathuai, perpendicular to the flow. It stood against granitic turbulent hydraulic forces that creates flood discharge exceeding 7,000 meter cube per second. And it made with large stone blocks interlocked and gaps filled with indigenous mortar made with blending with sand, lime, bee honey, wood resins, and many other local materials. And the feeder canal a survey done in 1881 by Henry Parker, the drawing shown here. Henry Parker has recorded that the canal slope is 1 foot per 1 mile, and bed width is 55 feet, and depth is 5 feet, 5.5 feet. Depth of water was flowing through the canal. Okay, that's all about the giant tank system. No, sorry, I have some more maps here. This giant tank map 1902, giant tank map 1932, and giant tank map 2014. If you compare, you can see the changes made that have taken place. It is not the first time restoration at the first instance. A lot of changes are taking place, and this is the recent map I got down from the Irrigation Department website. It was developed using the GIS and remote sensing data. If anyone is interested in more details, you can go to the website and see and how complicated the system is. So as I mentioned earlier, there is a possibility of wrong interpretation of some of the observations made during the initial restoration. Spill path of the ancient tank was identified and restored in 1901. In such case, I can quote. Until 2014, while spilling, actually this is the selected path, spillway path during the restoration, because the spill structure was there at the place where it is shown here in the giant tank right hand corner. Then after restoration, this spillway made a lot of damages to the irrigable area, inundating in each spilling, a lot of area get inundated. So however, during 2014 only, the Irrigation Department, that is after 120 years of operation, irrigation engineers found that actual ancient spillway was not this one, the selected one in 1901. It runs through another path further northwards to another sub basin. So however, this path was not identified at the beginning and completely overgrown with very thick jungle, and it was declared as a national park or strict forest or something like that, and got silted up. So it was opened up anyway in 2014, and now functioning smoothly without damaging the paddy lands. So my next slide, next selection is Alahara to give you some brief information about the restoration of the Anicut. The selection of the suitable place in Abanganga is a genius decision, which I showed in my previous engineering survey sheets as well. The site condition provided a perfect base for the firm foundation, and the surveys done by 1887 revealed that the foundation is suitable for any type of construction, for a new construction even. And the technique used in blocking the Ambanganga and was in ancient time was to head up the main Ambanganga here with the anicut, and then so I don't know whether you can see my pointer here. It is the main anicut, and then the head up the water and send the water through the Kudaganga. And then at the Kudaganga, there is another anicut that diverts water through the Yodala, starting from Alahara anicut to the up to Minneri and Kantale. So, so the two anicuts, new anicuts constructed in 1945 during the 1945 restoration is almost at the same place, and anybody now visit the place can see remnants of the ancient anicut intact without, I mean, there were some disturbances anyway with the flood flow and things like that. And many other remnants also can be seen at the Alahara anicut. And then Alahara Minneri Yodala again is another marvel. It is a single bank diversion canal that conveyed water up to Minneri with 25-mile long canal and to the Kantale Reservoir. So there are 3,700 hectares directly feed by this Yodala, and you can see the drawings done 1887 after a survey along the canal, marking all the breaches. This is the first mile in the drawing shown. It marks all the breaches and features along the canal, and they have found the stone foundations and some stone pitching along the canal that were vividly given in the R.L. Brohier's book, and those were found to be the canal spillways. And in the modern designs, in the current restorations, those spills were replaced. Sometimes some of them with the radial gated spillways. The outflow is so huge without providing the radial gated spillway, that cannot be the inflow could be cannot be sent outwards without damaging the canal. So another important feature here is the very recently on the irrigation engineers identified that abundant small reservoirs in the upstream of the Alahara Minneri Yodala. So those are meant for flood and sediment detention reservoirs coming up from the upper catchment of the canal. So one of these tanks, all those were breached anyway, and one of these tanks was restored in 2014. And the photo here you see in the left hand side is one of the remnants of the remnants of one of the small reservoir breached in upstream. So if I continue with another scheme, Minipe, it can we cannot miss that, because we are talking about the large when we are talking about the large anicuts, Minipe cannot be missed. Some believe anyway, as you know, Mahavali is the largest river and it is very wild when it reaches Veragantota, and any construction across such a stretch is certainly a giant work. This engineering survey sheets in 1956 shows the ancient path of the Minipe canal, and Minipe anicut diverts the river at this bend shown in the engineering survey sheet, and in left hand that is the foundation here almost rest on the rock firmly. During the restoration in 1940s, a new anicut was built up across the full width of the river, just below the ancient anicut. And with the Mahavali Accelerated Program, Minipe new right bank canal was constructed to feed Ulliti Ratkinda and that area. Then to divert water, another new canal, Anicut was built in 1980s. And the photo in the middle shows the improvements done very recently to the same Anicut by raising it by 3.5 meter to pool the water releasing from Rantam Bay. And when go into the more details about the ancient Minipe Canal, starting from this Anicut, it is 74 kilometer in length and was reconstructed in the same path. And the irrigable area is a narrow path, narrow landship between the Anicut and the Mahavali River. And again, this is this setup, this setting up of this canal and the other features. It's amazing. There are 7 main streams crossing the canal and provide the spill aqueduct in under current design criteria. So actually, it is not a simple single bank canal as you see when you go to the canal, but flowing through a very complicated topography. So I have no idea how this trace was laid and later maintained, especially maintenance of this type of complicated system, comparing with the current problems in maintaining other Minipe Canal. I cannot imagine how they have managed the system even after the construction. My next one, I will move to the last segment of my presentation. That is the recent restoration started, but had to stop in sadly due to the current economic crisis. I wrote an article about this work also to the IS newsletter in 2016. So it is a restoration of Kuda Vilachya Reservoir in Vilpattu National Park. This Mahavilachya and Kuda Vilachya twin reservoirs are located in Modaragamaru, called Talava. Mahavilachya reservoir was restored during 1955-58 period, and Kuda Vilachya was not restored as it was located in Vilpattu National Park. There were no areas to be irrigated, and there was no requirement at that time to restore it. Anyway, with the development of the area, Vilachya area, now they want more land to be irrigated under Mahavilachya, and also especially the domestic water needs is there coming up as a grievance. So to supply the drinking water and to augment the irrigation supplies in LB of Mahavilachya, the restoration of Kuda Vilachya was started. The surveys started in 2013 after obtaining the approval from the Wildlife Department, and then now it is mandatory now to get the CE approval for development works and also to conduct the archaeological impact assessments. So it is usually done, what is usually done by the archaeology department. The archaeological department carried out their study in 2018 and submitted their report by 2020. So these reports are available. Those were available, those were referred by the design engineers when restoration proposals were finalized. During the reconnaissance surveys, following features were observed in the ancient dam and headworks. Old embankment was 2.5 kilometers long. There were 7 breaches on it. Maximum height of the dam was 10 meters from the ground level. Earthwork could be estimated as 500,000 meter cube. And there were 2 sluices. I will go into more details of this in later in other slides. Now this is there are 2 photos. These are the photos of the sluices when we visited in 2012. These sluices were intact. It was in perfect condition. But unfortunately, when surveys started for the restoration, the access roads were built and the sluices were open for the public, and these were destroyed by the treasure hunters after that. So the typical stone slabs used in ancient sluices in large dams can be seen here with the outer brick cover. You can see the right hand side photograph with the brick work covering the sluice. This is the sluice barrel. It is still in good condition. Until recently, it was a shelter for the Bear family until when the irrigation officials were doing surveys, the Bear family was there. It was made with 8 feet by 2 feet by 2 feet cut stone and covered with the thick brick masonry what I shown in previous photograph. Then the sill of the 2 sluices were at different levels. This can be observed in many ancient dams. Like Kaudulla, Nurava, Minneriya, Parakram Samudra, everywhere. The sluice levels are in different levels. So that actually that means that shows that ancient engineers had very precise leveling methods to fix that exit level of the sluice to suit the levels of the irrigable area that to be served under gravity. So this is a unique feature in this old reservoir. It is a platform at the spill. There are so many folk tales behind it. It may be sometimes remnants of a reservoir operation room or additional emergency spillway. We don't know it. And this is supposed to be the spill. This is a very unique feature in this earth dam. It is the riprap that is unharmed, intact, and it was not. It was preserved by the wild beasts like elephants who are there in Vilpattu. So the riprap was laid in 2 levels. As shown in this diagram in the right hand side, and the interlocking of the riprap rubble were done like this. Project director engineer Prasanna sent me these diagrams. So actually this is a very strange arrangement. So which I cannot explain with the modern theories for the ripraps. So if the reservoir was operated with this arrangement of 2 levels with the riprap with the 2 levels, I have no explanation for the survival of the exposed section of the without any harm. There is no scouring or any damage happen to this exposed section. So archaeologists believe that it is the bund has been raised later. That has to be confirmed with the geological or archaeological investigations to be done at a later stage. So the archaeological officers here trying to copy the inscription at the site during their visit that was included in their report. Still So they believe that it is a text on regulations, legal rights, and the benefits of the reservoir. And if I go show the details in a plan view, the location of these components at the extreme end as marked by the project director engineer Prasanna. At the extreme end, LB end, it is a spill, LB spillway that shown in the diagram here. And then the place number 2 is the platform, and number three it is the LB sluice, and number 5 is the in red colors you can see the double riprap I was discussing about, and then this is the RB sluice, which was located very close to a breaching section. Then irrigation officers considered 3 options for restorations during the planning stage. First one is the restoration of the existing dam as it is. So they selected the dam trace along the same old dam as shown in the yellow color. And then the bund section, if we adapted that same bund, the bund section would have been this one. You can see this is very unusual one, because the slope is 1:4.5, and this is not economical anyway. If we were to adopt the same old dam trace, this would have been the dam section. And the second option is entirely separate dam in the upstream, about 125 meter upstream of the ancient dam. And then after consulting the archaeology department, they were of the view that important features of the ancient dam has to be preserved. So the option 3 was proposed with a new location of spillway and also new sluice, and change in the alignment as shown in the pink color. So the new dam will be as shown in the pink color, and the new spill with the radial gates will be built at the river section. The new sluice is at the location as shown in the RB side as number 7, and to serve the Mahavilachya LB area, and also to provide the drinking water can be done through that sluice located there. So the site preparation work already done, and construction became to a halt due to current economic crisis. So our heritage forum members of IESL can still visit this site and see with your own eyes this amazing heritage site. Okay, this is my last slide anyway. So thank you very much for listening and giving your attention. As I mentioned, what I shared with you is only a tiny portion of information over the irrigation heritage in Sri Lanka. So there are so much left to explore. I do not touch social and environmental aspects too, and focus only on technical interventions made during restorations. Those are, of course, two another important areas that huge information available and to be collected. So universities can start hundreds of studies leading to PhDs even, if you collect this information and gather it systematically. So there are sufficient physical evidences available at the field untouched, not in Kudavilachya. There are so many other large reservoirs hidden in the jungle. We can do the explorations and do the research work, move on this ancient heritage. So record done by the officers engaged in surveying and restorations are available in many government institutes. So I am actually I'm waiting for a day that Sri Lankan government pays attention for research on water heritage in the country and makes use of this information to attract more visitors to these places. With that, I conclude my presentation. Thank you very much. I hand over the floor back to the moderator, Engineer Naugamo, Professor Naugamo, to generate the discussion if time permits only. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Badra Kamaladasa, for your excellent presentation. I'm actually conducting the question and answer session. If you have the members, if you have any questions related to the content of this presentation, now it's the time to raise them. So actually, we saw one question through this Zoom chat. It is regarding the Gabian, this Richard Lanka, that's one Zoom member has raised the question asking.
Yeah, Dr. Samanthi, yeah, I can see the, I can see the question.
Okay, madam, go ahead.
Yeah, Richfield, Lanka asked recently a Gabion wall has been constructed transforming Minpe Yodala to a double bank canal. Do you know logic behind this design? Do you know, actually, I heard that Gabion walls were introduced not throughout the canal, but to a certain, in certain sections only. I do not know the design, the decision, the reasons for the change of the design. But as I mentioned, there are a lot of maintenance issues coming up, especially silting of the reservoirs, silting of the canal. Minipe Canal is a huge problem for the irrigation department to maintain and convey the water along this 74 kilometers long canal. So to control the siltation coming up from the upper catchment, it would have been done. Can you hear me, Dr. Samanthi?
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay.
So from the audience, if you have questions, ask from Madam Kamaladasa, it's the time. Especially, actually, this is a very interesting presentation, especially the Kudavilache, that case study. I have a question related to that. In the last few slides, you mentioned like after the restoration, the dam axis seems to be not linear. So will it be a issue in terms of dam safety? Like when we address dam safety issues, like it's kind of.
Dr. Samanthi, it is Kudavilache, you are talking?
Yeah.
Actually, even though it is shown, I mean, in the flood plan, it is a more than 2 kilometers long canal, right?
Okay.
So if in the field, it won't.
We don't see many sharp curves, no?
Yeah, it will be very smooth curvatures that will be taken. Yes.
Okay.
So there are so many bunds like that. I mean, but especially we have to see whether we can preserve the ancient dam. So during the construction, actually, these issues will be addressed. Thank you.
Okay.
Madam, can I add?
Yeah, sure. Yes.
I am Janaki Migastan from Irrigation Department. Can I add?
Yeah, sure, Janaki. Please go ahead.
Because after the archaeological investigation and the archaeological report of the Kudavilache tank, they advised us to construct new bund that preserving existing bund and construct new bund after the toe of the old bund.
Yeah.
Therefore, Kuda Vilache, we are going to construct a new bund,
Right.
preserving existing bund
Right.
without touching that.
Yeah.
Without touching, okay.
Yes.
Thank you, Janaki, for that clarification.
Madam, I am Parakrama from Peradeniya. Can I ask a question?
Yes, sure.
Do you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear
Hello.
you. Yes, yes, I can hear you.
In case of this, now you mentioned about Madhuraya old sloughs. So do you have any idea whether if there was an irrigation system, can it be a trans-basin one or just it has been used for Madhuraya basin only because it's a different basin? Any idea about that?
Uh,
No, earlier.
Yes, actually, Mr. Pakram, I am not familiar very much about this Madhuraya system, only because I was not involved in Mahavali accelerated program, and only through the literature I have gone through. Anyway, it's a very interesting question that might lead me to study more. Sorry, I cannot answer that question. If there is anyone in the audience who can, if Engineer Panapitiya, Mahinda Panapitiya can answer that question, I am very thankful to anyone from the Mahavali Authority who is here, if somebody is here in the audience.
Thank you, madam. So we will also think. I think I will maybe I will contact you on this later. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Samantha, I have taken, I think, more than 1 hour. So if there are no questions, we can conclude.
Yeah. Yes, let's wait few more minutes, if you have any questions, maybe you can just ask or maybe type in the chat box, then we can initiate discussion related to that. Anyway, we are planning to provide this this recording. Yeah, thank for your comments. Actually, yes, it is indeed a very informative presentation, and we okay, then, madam, let's find out, no?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Okay, thank you very much, madam, for your excellent presentation, and it's a very informative presentation. And I should say something about this History and Heritage Forum. Actually, this idea to form a History and Heritage Forum to spread and deepen the knowledge on ancient engineering aspects was conceptualized in the mind of the President ISL, Dr. Kamal Laksiri, and a group of interested members joined together and created this forum as a platform for us to discuss these ancient engineering aspects. Actually, this is the 4th webinar under the History and Heritage Forum, we discussed many aspects related to various engineering aspects. Even we discuss about steel melting, there's irrigation tanks, as well as Dutch heritage structures. And today our presenter engineer, Madam Badra Kamaladasa, she is not a guest to the History and Heritage Forum. Actually, she was with us as a senior member. She advised us always to focus on what aspects to be discussed under the History and Heritage Forum. Thank you very much, Madam, for your excellent presentation. And this, based on this presentation, we can, as you mentioned, we can explore many things related to the ancient irrigation system, especially related to the restoration of ancient irrigation systems in the country. Finally, I would like to thank Professor Udeni Nawagamu, President, History and Heritage Forum, for his continuous support to organize these events. Also, Engineer Janaka Priyantha for his support to organize this webinar, as well as from the ISL side, Mr. Chamila Priyantha and the team for their support in organizing this webinar. Thank you for the huge audience we got today. More than 80 members participated, representing, actually it's a multidisciplinary audience in this under the History and Heritage Forum. Thank you very much for all of your participation. We will join with you, maybe a similar event in future. Thank you very much. Have a great evening to all of you. Thank you.